So exactly what was I saying before is that there's not just one type of online community. That being said, there are actually two branches. There is an internal and external type of community. What you all are probably mostly familiar with are the internal communities. Subreddits are very similar to what internal communities are like. It's a point where most people can go and rely on there being a certain topic of communication, and that's why people go there. Um, so just breaking down a little bit more, essentially the difference between the two are internals will have greater connection to members. As a community manager, when you're an internal community manager, you're going to have a lot more engagement on your site. So what that means is all the comments, all the regular online community features that you would normally see, that's all encompassing in that internal one. And of course, they are going to be used more frequently by non-professionals. But that's not to say that an external community is designed for professional individuals. I would like to consider myself semi-professional, but I spend God knows how many hours on Reddit. But what I'm saying by an external community is we kind of go where the people are. If there's not a necessary reason to have that online community, you can have certain features, a portal where people can still gather and get information, and you still obviously want to monitor certain things that relate back to what you do, your brand, and that sort of stuff. So essentially we have an increased use in social media, increased offsite engagement, or what I meant by that is going to their turf. So for my particular community, government contractors love LinkedIn. They're all over their LinkedIn groups, and that's where we go. So we share content with them. We figure out what's going on in that industry and legislations that's occurring there, and we kind of relate back and forth there. And an example I can also use, I'm probably not going to be striking any chords here, but Prius could make an online community about their car. But there's a fan-made one, which is called Prius Chat. So it's already established, and as far as I'm aware, it's not associated with Toyota. So folks are already going there. It's established. There's a lot of engagement. So there's no reason to build a second online community. However, no matter what, if it's an internal or external community, they both require analytics, monitoring, management, and obviously planning before you launch. So if you're going to be starting an online community from scratch, what that means is if there's already an online community doing exactly what you want to do, you're probably going to be wasting your time. If you're going to be doing a niche or subsection of that, and you can kind of punch something out that's unique from something else, that established online community, then go for it. But you don't want to put a lot of time, effort, and money into something that's going to just kind of backfire if there's already something established and working suitable to people. Okay. So I'll kind of use this as a example and my terrible photoshopping skills at that. So for my example, as an external community manager, we kind of look through the keyhole into what the community is. We look and see what everyone's doing. We report back to different individuals, and I'll kind of break this down in a minute as I use some other examples as well. But for the internal community managers, which is probably what you're all going to be more used to, and if you're looking for jobs in community management, so what you're going to be doing, you're going to be in that crowd. And to break that down even further, I've got some ridiculous photos that can kind of associate exactly what I mean by that. So as an internal community manager, you are going to be everyone's best friend. That means the community architect, the person or people that built it, the developers, the ones who get to fix all the issues that get reported to you and that you find, and of course the community members. Whenever there's anything going on, you want to make sure you're there for them. You want to help nourish the relationships and that sort of thing. But with that in mind, that also means you get to be the community punching bag. So if a community member finds an issue or something broken on the site, well, sometimes they're hostile, sometimes they're peaceful, but you get to take that brunt force, and unfortunately that doesn't mean or give you an excuse to say anything negative in return. I'm not sure how familiar you all with the recent events with ocean marketing, but that is a perfect example of how you don't respond to someone that has some criticism of what you do. So moving on to criticisms, we have the troll. I'm sure you're all very familiar with what a troll is, so I don't really have to go into too much details, but they are specifically there to egg you on and terrorize you or your members, and that's why you put policies and regulations and terms of services in place. And in some instances, you're going to be the reporter. Now, my certain community management job is, again, very different than the regular ones. So I will actually go to industry events and that sort of thing and report and write articles and that sort of thing. But as an internal community manager, what I've seen and what people really seem to enjoy is where you write about stuff that occurs in your community, and you can kind of share that outside of your community. A perfect example is what Eric Martin, or Reddit's general manager, published today about hitting that 2 billion views mark for December. And then moving on, we've got hope. Well, if there's a feature that community members want on your site or something that they would like to be improved, well, you're going to be their hope. Without you, you're pretty much the Lorax. So if someone's sitting there cutting down trees, such as, let's say, my boss tells me we should lock down comments to make it where you have to log in a certain way and go through 3 pages, well, our members aren't going to be very happy about that. So they're going to communicate to you, and that's your job to communicate on their behalf. And of course, you want to keep the peace. It's your job to make sure that all the members are kind of civil. There are various different kinds of methods that you can do with community management. You can either have a light hand or a heavy hand. And again, it just depends what your theme is, what your goals are, if it's professional, if it's social, that sort of thing. And don't forget the ban hammer. Occasionally you'll get spammers that just drop random links in there. Again, I'm going to use Reddit as the prime example here because most of you are upon that site. But essentially, that Reddit uses up and down votes to deal with that sort of situation. But online communities are going to be anything from consisting of forums, and that means you're going to have to manually go through there and make sure that there's no spam and that sort of thing. And if all else fails, at the end of the day, you can always drink a bunch of liquor and just hope it passes over. All right, so I'm going to go a little bit taboo here and use ninja as an example, but please do not use this term in any way, shape, or form. Or guru or swami or any of that stuff, and don't call yourself any of that in regards to social media managers either. It's kind of a joke and people tend to frown upon it. But I'm making a point out of this, so I'll kind of get into that. So from my kind of external communities, we kind of act as monitors for the marketing teams. Basically, if there's any information out on the market or there's competitors doing certain things, there's conversations that are occurring that we should be aware of, that means I should be reporting it back to them. We also collect responses and issues from the public and provide to development. Obviously, that's kind of what internal community managers do as well. If there's a problem, you report it to the proper people. And then supposedly we are less frequently engaged with members on our community, but that's not necessarily the case. So this is kind of what I guess my boss would like to have me say, or my company would like to have me say. But for the external community manager to actually be effective, it's not so much a ninja as it is the 90s style Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, which is cheesy as hell and friends with absolutely everybody. So what that means is you connect with competing communities and companies. So I'll use an example specifically. I don't want to mention who the competitor is, but let's say we have a particular article and we feel it would be interesting to their readers, so we reach out to them and we try to get it published there. And in return, we'll do the same for them or share their content on social networking sites or maybe promote them in some other way. We're also the cheerleaders for the community and face of the brand. So as you're kind of looking through this, you're probably realizing this is more of an extension of marketing. Generally, when you're looking at a community manager, we usually fall under marketing for organizational charts. My particular position falls under an editorial team, so it's obviously, again, not what you would call your traditional online community manager. But it is still an extension of marketing and all that good stuff. But moving on, what we do, we get involved with the community on their turf. So as I mentioned before, government contractors love LinkedIn. They have hundreds of groups and that sort of thing. So that's where we go. We find them and we make sure all that communication's great. And of course, what I was saying before, we share content and information, or the terrible example I used, we share pizza with everybody. So what a community is not. Actually, before I go into that, I'd like to get a little more serious note of someone who actually has more professional background in what I'm saying. Jeremiah Oyang is actually one of the most badass community managers there is. I'm pretty sure if you search for community management, his site will probably come up in the top 5 or so. But he has this thing called the 4 tenets of community managers. So what these 4 lists are, you're a community advocate, you're a brand evangelist, you have savvy communication skills, and you shape editorial content. And then finally, they gather community input for future product and services. So essentially, that's kind of what I said, but in a little bit more professional and structured manner. So if you have time, I would highly suggest that you take a look at his site. It is www.web-strategist.com. And he's got a lot of great stuff. I'll also highlight someone later on, and each session I'll kind of feature a different community manager that would probably be a useful read to you. And I probably wanted to mention this before, but obviously I'm not going to have any mandatory assignments. But I figure I might as well try to bribe some of you all to get a little bit involved. So if some of you want to take part in a voluntary project that's going to be at the end of this presentation, I'm going to bribe you with like a $25 iTunes gift card or something of that nature. And I'll get into that in the end. But anyways, moving on, what a community is not. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, or anything that would generally be called a social network. However, if I can get this to change, using social media as a community manager is pretty important. Not only you yourself want to use it, but your members are going to want to use it and share your content, and that's how you're going to grow. So social media and social networks are obviously important. They help you share your content externally. They increase your community growth, competition is there, and conversations obviously occur there already. So if you're not on representing yourself on Twitter or Facebook and all those other places, someone could take over for you. The competition can weasel in there. I see it quite frequently. So it's at least good to have some sort of presence, but you don't want to regurgitate just, inclusive content. And of course, if you want to build content and blogs and stuff associated with your community, you can find influencers there. For an example, Twitter, you just find an associated hashtag, and that's the best way to find those. Facebook and LinkedIn, they have groups, and that's the easy way around that as well.